My headphones, turn me up in my headphones. I'm still stuck in the 80s/90s. Lottos, kangaroo boots, natty ghosts, Velas, jumpsuits and troops, Junos, color Levi's, Bugs Bunny sweaters with the rhinestone ring on it. Fighting and making up the next day. Nobody getting shot. Working a hustling to get it, a get got. We had love for the streets, our family, our foes, our friends. Respect for the elderly. Pager/payphone, sneaking into Adams Theater. Watching Crush grooving tougher than leather. Hopping gates out the college port to bang out, cause you don't wanna get caught at mom's crib or at Von's crib. Eating funny dinner with the fam. Church every Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m. And even if I fell asleep in the back row or played sick, no matter what, man, I still had to go 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. 80s, baby.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. Couple week hiatus, but we are back with webisode number 97 on the XCast live here on the EmpireMedia.com. It's day 5330 in the search for Tim Chevelday. I'm your host, Josh Houslander. With me, as always, producer extraordinaire Adam Hernandez. What is up, Adam?
Nothing much. How you doing tonight, man?
Pretty good, man. We just got basically one topic tonight, and that's we're going to go through and we're going to cover maybe I missed one or two. I don't know that for sure, but I think I got them all. I think we'll get to all of them. But we're going to cover the people who have announced their candidacy or are likely to announce their candidacy for president running in 2020. This is kind of I thought this would be a fun show to do, a cool show to do, because we're talking about people who have announced their candidacy over 2 years early. You know, I mean, not over 2 years, but almost 2 years early. So it's kind of, we don't know what the next year and a half is going to do to these candidates, how it's going to handle what's going to become of them. And the person who ends up being the candidate on either side very well might not be one of these people. Mm-hmm. There's a very good chance that it will be somebody who has not announced yet. And we can pretty much be certain that somebody on this list is going to have some terrible gaffe that's going to, ruin their career. And some of these people are kind of running maybe so they can run again in the future. They're throwing their name out there now, so maybe because they really want to run in 2024 or... Oh, sure. Or they just want to make a name for themselves in their own... Yeah. In their own area or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be people that we mentioned tonight, candidates that we mentioned tonight, that could very well find themselves in a presidential race sometime down the line. Mm-hmm. I think it's the case, too, with the Republic. I know we're primarily going to be talking about mm-hmm. Democrat candidates tonight.
Yeah, but we got some Republicans, too.
Yeah, just because... I mean, that's how usually this goes, unless we're talking about... Well, if we're going to bring up Republicans, obviously it may be some people who we may think are going to try to primary Donald Trump.
Sure.
But there's certainly still Republicans out there that I think could be in line to run for the White House once the Republican, this time Donald Trump, is out of office.
Sure.
So...
Yeah, I mean, there's, most likely, and we'll talk about this when we get to some of them, but most likely Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. I mean, but we'll see.
Historically speaking, yeah. that's how things work out.
Right. We do know that he is definitely seeking a second term.
He is seeking he's already filed the paperwork and everything. Mm-hmm. He's already started raising money for his next campaign. So yeah, despite what happens between now and election, Donald Trump is going to be running for president again. So.
Right, absolutely. Because, well, for one thing, we know that even if someone were to primary Donald Trump and win, again, highly unlikely.
Has it ever happened that a primary candidate was ever lost?
A sitting president's never been primaried.
Because Ronald Reagan came close,
right?
But that was it.
No, there have been some that have put a dent, that have tried, that have definitely gone for it. In Ronald Reagan's case, he was pretty much the closest ever. It went to the convention. You know, when Ronald Reagan attempted to primary Gerald Ford, sitting president at the time, it went all the way to the convention. So that was a big one. That was absolutely huge.
And that was different. I mean, because Gerald Ford was never elected president.
Right.
So, I mean, again,
he had never been elected president. He wasn't even, a lot of people kind of glaze over this part because people always say that he was never elected president. He was never even elected vice president.
Yeah, because, I mean,
he took over as vice president too. You know, Spiro Tiagnu had to resign, and Gerald Ford was appointed to the position of vice president, and then Richard Nixon resigned, and Gerald Ford became president of the United States. So, he never won in a presidential election ever.
Okay.
As either spot. That's another thing too worth pointing out is that sometimes, like you had kind of started to mention on the Republican side, but this is true on both sides, sometimes when somebody's running for president, they're not really running for president. Sometimes you're kind of running for vice president. Sometimes you're kind of running for the cabinet.
Sure.
You know, you want to get your name out there so you can become part of the process and be part of somebody that has to make a deal later. You know, whether it just be a deal at the convention to include something in the platform or a deal that gets you or like-minded people into a cabinet position or into the executive branch, in essence. But let's go over some of these people.
Okay.
Let's start with the big dog. The guy who's the technical Democratic frontrunner right now, even though he's not a Democrat technically, and that is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has run in the past, as we know, close primary with Hillary Clinton. He's not a Democrat.
He was robbed in the...
Yeah, he was absolutely robbed. He was screwed over.
Yeah, he was screwed over by the Democrats last cycle.
By the Democrats and the Clinton machine, and he was absolutely screwed. Probably should have been the nominee. Well, really, definitely should have been the nominee.
I think he would have won too.
You think so?
I think he would have beat Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't know. I tend to say I think Trump would have won, but we do not know that. We have no idea. I mean, he could have... When he got screwed over by the Dems and the Clinton machine, he was still rising, you know? And he would have. And if you notice, as much as Donald Trump rips on everybody, Crooked Hillary and whatever he calls Ted Cruz, and, you know, I mean, he's ripped on...
Ted.
Yeah, he's ripped on every Republican that ran against him. He criticized Hillary. Donald Trump has never really ripped on Bernie Sanders.
He called him Crazy Bernie.
He has at one point, but he doesn't criticize Bernie that much.
He doesn't criticize him as much as...
And part of that is because he's smart enough to know that they have some of the same base. Bernie definitely, you are right about this, Adam, definitely would have stolen a segment of votes from Donald Trump that Hillary did not get. He absolutely would have done that. And Bernie could still potentially, even this time, steal votes from Donald Trump, even people that voted for Trump last time, simply because there is a segment of the population that voted for Trump just to get change, just to stir the pot, just to make a mess. You know, they're just sick of it all.
Well, that's something that Donald Trump did very, very well too. The last presidential election was tuning himself into the working class people in the country, and that's why he was able to, you know, make that blue wall red. Back in 2016, because he did do a lot of campaigning in Michigan. He did do a lot of campaigning in Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, all of those states that typically in the past, well, excluding Indiana, had the tendency to go blue in presidential elections, and that was something that Hillary Clinton greatly took advantage of, or didn't take advantage of, but took for granted. And if Hillary would have won, I don't want to say if she won any one of those states, she would be president right now.
Right.
But in terms of Bernie Sanders trying, stealing votes, I believe you. Obviously, the most staunch Donald Trump supporter is still going to remain with Donald Trump. But there are some certain issues here that kind of go hand in hand with both sets of candidates, even though I think Donald Trump is a total fraud and he doesn't believe anything that he says. He is a prototypical opportunist. And anyways, there is a segment, though, like I said, that will attract some Donald Trump supporters, and a lot of that too is Bernie's stance on trade agreements, foreign trade, and jobs leaving the United States. I think that Bernie Sanders would find some Donald Trump supporters.
There's a populist element between the two of them that they absolutely share. That is definitely true. We're going to be using, I love the old term. This is a term you don't hear as much as you used to, but it's presidential timber is the term that they used to use a lot, and I still like to use it. Now, this isn't always true, but this time around for the Dems, people with presidential timber are going to be Midwesterners because of what you just brought up. You're going to, if the Democrats are smart, they're going to want to run a Midwesterner. Preferably somebody from the Midwest, or preferably somebody with Midwestern type values, or more preferably both. Is really what you're going to want here. You are also right too, Adam, that it is very safe to say that the vast majority of people that voted for Donald Trump last time are going to vote for Donald Trump again. We can pretty much be certain of that. There are people who can steal votes from him, and also he's going to gain some votes too. Incumbents gain votes. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to us because we look at it like he's not popular, people dislike him, people dislike this. We hear criticism in the media, but typically, incumbent presidents gain votes the next time around. If you want an example, very recently of a president who was viewed as somewhat unpopular and very criticized heavily in the media, look at George W. Bush. George W. Bush lost the popular vote in 2000, and in 2004, he came back with he won that pretty handedly, actually, against John Kerry. There really wasn't... We viewed it as a close election, and it still was a close election, but he won. He won and had got a pretty good size, popular vote. Win.
I think there are other variables, though, too, in that election that helped George Bush. First of all, we were in the middle of a war.
Oh, for sure.
That's not to say we're not in the middle of a war now, but it was a lot fresher then. And typically speaking, if you are in the middle of a military conflict, the sitting president is probably going to do pretty well. If I can remember correctly, too, there was an incident too just prior to the election that kind of it was a I don't want to say it was a terrorist threat or something like that, that I believe helped George
John
W.
Kerry
Bush
had some
too.
Goofy flub-ups, too, throughout his campaign.
Yeah,
it
did.
really did not help his candidacy. He's one of these guys that kind of definitely had... People viewed him less favorably by the time his campaign was over than when his campaign started. That's for sure.
First candidate I ever cast a ballot for.
Really? John
Yep,
Kerry?
it was John Kerry, yep.
First presidential candidate I ever cast a ballot for was George W. Bush, actually. But the time before that, when he was running against Al Gore, is the first time that was the first presidential election I could vote in. I was voting for about 2 years before that, but I'm a lot older than Adam. Like I said. But Bernie Sanders right now is definitely the front runner. He's 77 years old. He would definitely be the oldest president ever elected. Which means we're talking. I'm giving their ages now, but pretty much in your mind, every age I say, add 2 years, because this election's 2 years away. Yep. Almost 2 years away. So he'll be 79 years old.
Yep. He won't quite be 80 when he takes the oath of office.
Right.
If he wins, but
yeah, he'd be 79 and he'll turn 80. I believe his birthday's in September.
I can look.
So he'll take office in January, and he'll have his 80th birthday that September.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know why that's kind of ringing a bell for me, or I'm remembering that. Trust me, I do not know the birthday of every one of these candidates we're going to go over tonight. That's just one I happen to remember from...
September 8th.
Okay. From years, from the last go-around, I seem to remember that. But, I mean, Donald Trump was the oldest president ever elected.
Yep.
Well, actually, he's not. He actually is not. We always say that Donald Trump is... A lot of people say Donald Trump is the oldest president ever elected. He technically was not. The oldest president ever elected was Ronald Reagan in '84 when he won re-election.
Okay.
Ronald Reagan was younger than Donald Trump when he started his presidency. But when he won re-election in '84, he was 73 years old.
But if Donald Trump wins again...
Right, then he will be the oldest president. Yeah. So if it's Donald versus Bernie, we are definitely having the oldest president ever win that election. We can maybe come back to Bernie if we get it. Oh, one thing that I think is really worth noting, I normally don't like these rules, and I hated the old Democratic rules for their primary system, where you had mentioned that Bernie really did get screwed. Mm-hmm. But I believe that one of their rule changes was that
superdelegates.
That definitely was changed, but I believe one of their changes was Bernie is going to have to become a Democrat.
Is he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is a rule that was talked about, so he is going to have to drop his independent status. He's always caucused with the Democrats, as both a congressman and as a senator, even though he's been an independent socialist from Vermont in both the situations. But I do believe, and don't completely quote me on this, and they are their own entity, and they can change their rules whenever the hell they want to change them. But I do believe that Bernie is going to have to officially become a Democrat now if he wants to run in the Democratic primary. Because this was a big debate last time around.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's a name. It's a label.
Right. He's like 130 years old. So
it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
If he has to be a Democrat on a piece of paper, then he has to be a Democrat on a piece of paper.
Right.
It's not going to change his viewpoint or anything.
No,
like
it's not.
that,
It's not. It's just, but he's always partially prided himself on, he's not a Democrat. He is an independent, but he will have to actually become a Democrat. Again, not that big a deal, and I'm sure he'll do it for the opportunity to run. And it's actually not even a rule I disagree with. If you're running in a official party's primary, you probably should be a member of that party. It kind of makes sense. It really does. I actually don't blame the Democrats for making that switch. Who do you want to go to next? Let's just kind of jump around here. Representative Tulsi Gabbard. This is she would be the youngest president ever elected. She's 37 years old right now. She's made she'd be a whole lot of firsts if she were to be elected president. She'd be the first president elected in her 30s. She'd be the first female president. She'd be the first Hindu president. She'd be the first American Samoan president. Mm-hmm. She right now is a representative from Hawaii, not a big electoral state. She's an Iraq War veteran.
Yes, she is.
She's made a name for herself on a lot of things. I know this shouldn't matter. I don't mean to she's very pretty. And she is. She's very, very attractive woman, young and pretty. I know that's not supposed to matter, right? I could probably... I'm complimenting her by saying that, but I'm sure I could get in trouble for saying that or something. But I don't think she has a shot in hell, honestly.
No, but she's going to be...
not because of the things I just mentioned, either.
She's going to be one of those that this isn't going to be the last time you probably hear from her on that particular stage. She does have a connection to it with Bernie Sanders. She actually... she was involved in his campaign the first time around. So
That's good for anyone. Anyone who's involved in Bernie's campaign last time around means they're not a Hillaryite.
Yes.
Which bodes well for them in this election.
And I don't think anybody is going to be cozying up to the Clintons.
I don't think so.
This time around. The Clintons are most certainly kryptonite when it comes to the 2020 cycle here.
I know she hates the whole country for it, but people don't like Hillary Clinton. They never have.
No, I mean
they really never have.
And any Democrats still holding on to something like that, keep this in mind. I don't care what the popular vote or anything like that says. Yes, Donald Trump lost the popular vote. But Hillary Clinton also lost the Electoral College to what I think and what many other people think, and what I'm sure a lot of presidential historians are probably going to think is one of the worst candidates and one of the worst presidents of all time. That's who Hillary Clinton lost to. Now, what does that say about Hillary Clinton? Well, people can go out and draw their own conclusions. Yeah. But
when you lose to the worst candidate ever, doesn't that make you the worst candidate ever?
And I remember talking to my dad about this too, who is a Donald Trump supporter, and I obviously am not. Which, funny story, I'll tell you here in a second. Whoever lost this election, the 2016 election, I mean, whether it was the Republicans or whether it was the Democrats, they were going to have to take a good look at themselves and make some wholesale changes to their own party. They're going to have to do some major work to their party, because whoever lost that election was probably losing that election to one of the worst presidential candidates to ever run for office in the United States. And it just happened to be the Democrats. So whoever runs, they gotta be sure they're going to be staying clear of Donna Brazile, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, whoever. But anyways, I mean, it does bode well for her that she's I don't know, not a Bernie bro, but a former Bernie Sanders.
Well, she is. She would also be the first president from a non-contiguous state, from Hawaii. That's huge. Also, but let's talk presidential timber, and we're not talking about the, pursuant to this election specifically, just basic presidential timber. Hawaii is a very small electoral state, and she's only a congressman. Typically, congressmen do not... I use the term congressman to describe men and women. There's a debate about this that rages. But kind of like you say, you're a fireman if you're a man or a woman. I say congressman. So I apologize to those that offends. It's actually a lot of women who prefer to be called congressmen.
Well, Barack Obama was from Hawaii.
But he was from Illinois.
Well, he was...
I mean, no, he was born in Hawaii.
He was born in Hawaii.
No, I mean, that's typically when they say...
Oh, very good. You said he was born in Hawaii.
I know history. Adam is trying to get a birther thing going. I'm not biting because I don't care about this stupid controversy. But typically, I mean, we view Gerald Ford as the only president from the state of Michigan. Gerald Ford was born in Nebraska.
Yeah, he's from Michigan.
I mean, we wouldn't...
He played football at Michigan.
Right. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard was born in American Samoa. But she is representative of Hawaii. So, and that's the same with, Barack Obama was the senator from Illinois. Mitt Romney, born in Michigan.
Governor of Massachusetts.
When he ran last time.
Senator from Utah.
Now he's a senator of Utah. I mean, we would most likely, if he were to become president tomorrow, we would most likely say he was from Utah, even though that's really...
He's Mormon too, so...
Yeah, that's... We would have said Hillary was from New York. She was a carpetbagger in New York. She was from Arkansas. That. Yeah. But that's...
But I think she was born in Illinois.
She was.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was the first lady of Arkansas, is when she first became famous. Or we list Bill Clinton as being from Arkansas. Had Hillary won, we'd have listed Hillary Clinton as being from New York.
Jesus Christ, people, pick a state.
Yeah, well, I kind of agree. Yeah, I mean, Mitt Romney, who we had just mentioned, his dad was governor of Michigan.
Governor of Michigan.
When, before Adam and I were born. Not that much before Adam and I were born, but before we were born. I mean, my dad remembers, George Romney as governor. So, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, I feel like she has a bright future, but her chances of getting this spot are pretty slim. But as we mentioned, she would be a pretty good VP candidate potentially, especially if you're running the ancient Methuselah from the state of Vermont, and you're going all the way to Hawaii to get your, you want to run somebody. The old thing was you want to make sure you want to run a northerner and a southerner, and if you want to pick your opposite. And she, in a lot of ways, is Bernie's opposite, not in her viewpoints, but in who she is. Mm-hmm. She's not a million years old, and she, is far away from Vermont as you can be, really.
Yeah.
All right, some other ones. Let's talk about Senator Kristen Gillibrand. This is not somebody I was
Gillibrand.
Mm-hmm. Not somebody I was real familiar with, honestly, before she announced her candidacy. But then I recall that she is most famous. This woman, honestly, in my opinion, really has no shot whatsoever. But she's kind of going off of some hardcore stances she's taken, which made a name for her, and she's using it to run for president, Unlike Tulsi Gabbard, she is a senator, which gives her much better presidential timber. Unlike Tulsi Gabbard, she is from New York, the third biggest state in the union. Again, huge presidential timber, but does a Democrat from New York give you a bit? Is that a big deal? Not really, because the Democrats are going to take New York no matter what. Regardless of who wins, the Democrats are going to take New York and California. Mm-hmm. So now when you have a guy like Ronald Reagan, who is a Republican from California and could take that, that's huge. If you had a guy like Beto O'Rourke, who's a Democrat from Texas, that's a big deal. If you have a way where a Democrat can steal Texas or a Republican can steal New York or California, then now you're talking.
Yeah.
That is a big deal. And those people are, well, they're few and far between, honestly. I mean, that's why, as much as I didn't personally like this candidate, and I don't think he would have had a chance because he would have found a way to put his foot in his mouth, but Rudy Giuliani would have been a potentially great candidate for president. Yeah, for president, because he was a national hero from how he handled 9/11, and he was a Republican from the state of New York.
Yep. He would have won New York and would have, like you said, he would have made people think twice about California. I mean, probably wasn't going to be something that was a, shoo-in to go blue.
What's kind of weird, I say this sometimes just to get people to look at me funny when I'm talking politics, what a lot of people forget about some of these when they're talking about different states, and this is actually a reason, we're not going to get in, this is a different topic for a different night, but this is in some ways why the Electoral College is very important. But people often forget when you're talking about these big states, there are more Republicans in the state of California than there are in the state of Michigan. There are more Republicans
in the state. It's such a big state, right, though. Yeah.
And people are like, what? Why don't they win? Why don't Republicans get seats? Like, no, you got to analyze what is being said here. There are more Democrats in the state of Texas than there are in the state of Rhode Island, a Democratic stronghold.
Yep.
It's because 35% of the population of Texas or 35% of the population of California is bigger than the vast majority of states.
Yep.
Their total population. So that's really kind of an important thing. And a lot of times those people really get silenced in a lot of ways. But hey, they choose to live there, so that's That's how it rolls. I actually know right off the top of my head. I could rattle off. I'm not going to say their name live, but I have family and friends in California. I know a whole bunch of Republicans who live in California. I really do. Like, they're like, and but they just never get their people. They never get their vote heard, really. Another thing that I say that New York Republican or a New Jersey Republican or a Texas Democrat or a Arizona Democrat. Like, what was the guy that ran a few years ago? Bill Richardson. Mm-hmm. He's an Arizona Democrat.
Former governor.
Yeah. I say that these guys are good presidential timber, and they are in a lot of ways. But the fallback on that is that a California Republican, usually in most cases, isn't much of a Republican.
No, they're gonna be a very middle of the road type of Republican. Same thing with and like you were saying too. Same thing with like an Arizona Democrat.
Right. Bill Richardson.
I mean, take for instance Kristen Sinema, who was recently elected to the Senate out of Arizona. She is a very much a centrist type of Democrat.
Sure.
She's somebody that isn't going to go as far left as Bernie Sanders or, on the House side of things, AOC or anything like that. I mean, she's a more of definitely a centrist.
Arnold Schwarzenegger Democrat was an example of this in California.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, he was a California Republican. Bill Richardson, while he was running for president as an Arizona Democrat, was the first candidate, I believe, ever or in many decades. He was the candidate endorsed by the NRA. While all the primary candidates weren't. Not the Democrat endorsed by the NRA, the candidate endorsed by the NRA.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal, and that's not very Democrat-y of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not, and obviously he's not the only. There's plenty of them still out there. Joe Manchin out of what is it, Virginia or West Virginia? I can't remember which one it was, but I think it's Virginia. But he's another.
I think you're right.
I think he's another centrist Democrat as well. But Joe Manchin is going to differ a lot from Kamala Harris in California.
Right. But I mean, an example of a New York Republican too, by the way, is Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a lot. I mean, I know that it wasn't a state he won, and he's not really viewed as somebody who has a state because he's more famous for being a reality TV show.
But you see,
host.
I mean, but it's
very progressive in a lot of ways.
He's an interesting example though, because I said before he's an opportunist, and I know people define him too as a populist. He's telling people what they want to hear, and that's who Donald Trump is.
Sure.
You were the one that said it before that what 70-year-old man is going to, change his views basically on a flip of a coin?
Right.
Donald Trump, I can guarantee you, doesn't. Well, I don't want to say he doesn't support the stuff that he says. I think in a lot of ways he doesn't care about the stuff that he says. He just knows. I just think he knows his supporters care about it. So he's going to roll along with a lot of the stuff that he says.
The problem with a guy like Donald Trump is that when you're trying to analyze what Donald Trump says, well, he just says an awful lot, doesn't he? You know what I mean? And he tweets a lot. He says a lot. Donald Trump is... There have been worse liars who have been president of the United States, and I qualify them as worse liars because their lies were worse and more hurtful. But Trump lies a lot.
Yeah.
And he really does. He embellishes so often that many times, not always, but many times his embellishments are tantamount to a lie.
Yeah.
They are in fact a lie, And that's what's Yeah, I mean, but some people kind of like that about him too, obviously. One more thing about Kristen Gillibrand from New York. She's 52 years old, by the way, which is kind of more on par with the type of age of people that we like to elect. That's kind of still on the young side, but not crazy young like Tulsi Gabbard. The thing that makes her most famous is that she was one of the most outspoken senators who called for Trump's resignation over his sexual assault allegations. Now, this has made a name for her, but since some people still believe they're true, and I don't know, but that's probably going to hurt her, because even the Democratic Party has largely moved away from this because they have no proof. There is no proof of this, So that's probably not going to fare well for her if she actually made it into a general election. It might gain her some clout in the primary to some degree, but she's not going to be able to ride that out.
She was also one that said that Bill Clinton should have resigned over the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Right, she is. No, she's been consistent on that, but I think her stance on it is a little too hardline. Well, to be the presidential candidate.
Well, the thing with the whole Donald Trump stepping down, stuff like that, it's definitely not something that it's probably not something that Democrats should run on. And even Democrats in the House said they're not going to. I think it was like Jerry Nadler said that they weren't going to pursue impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump simply because they don't think they're going to have the votes in the Senate to remove him from office, and they believe that that if Donald Trump is impeached but he's not removed from office, that's going to be a power play for him. And they look at what happened with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was impeached, not removed from office, and it helped him in many ways. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no,
I mean, running.
I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump does get impeached in that same way that Bill Clinton did. I feel like it's in the back of their heads. It's kind of like a Bill Clinton payback to some degree, but he's not going to get removed from office.
I don't think they will. Unless something, and it's going to be interesting too to see what happens tomorrow. Michael Cohen, goes in front of the House Oversight Committee. It's going to be interesting what comes out from there, and obviously the Mueller report has to come out as well. Whether or not it's going to change any minds, either on the Democrat side or the Republican side.
Probably doubtful at this point.
You're probably right, but you never know at the same time. Sure. Who knows? I don't think Donald Trump is going to be impeached. I don't think that the Democrats are going to pursue that, knowing that that they're probably not going to get the votes in the Senate to remove him from office.
There's no way they get him right now. I mean, there's no way they have it.
They're not going to have him before the election anyway.
No, I actually believe that if he was impeached, I think it'll be about 6.5 years into his presidency. Is when I think.
So you think it'd be second term then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do, because I believe that 6.5, 7 years into his presidency, if he's still kind of going strong and doing what he's doing now, I think the Dems will impeach him with the votes in the House, knowing that they can't win it in the Senate, just to put a black mark on his presidency.
See, I'm gonna go out on a limb right now and say that I don't think Donald Trump is going to be reelected.
Okay,
but
I actually think he probably will be. But we can kind of get to that a little bit more, in a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know. I mean,
I'm not writing that down in Sharpie. That's for sure.
No. I mean, neither of us are here. I mean, it's, for one thing, it's way too early to tell. Way too early to tell. Let's talk about Julian Castro. If you want. This is the former Housing and Urban Development Secretary for Barack Obama. He's the former mayor of San Antonio. So again, we're talking about a Texas Democrat here. He's only 44 years old. Decently young guy. So again, that's when I say 44, that's 46 for when the time comes to vote, in November of 2020. But I don't think this guy has a great chance. He is a well-liked guy, though. I mean, he is a well-liked guy, and he's not... I do not in any way view Julian Castro as a radical within the Democratic Party, and a lot of the a big portion of the Democratic Party is really kind of going to a position that many view as pretty radical. Julian Castro, though, he's kind of a likable guy. It'd be kind of an interesting little fun thing to, Trump's building the wall and the Dems are running a son of an immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, his parents aren't immigrants, but his grandmother was, and his grandmother raised him,
okay.
I believe. So, Julian Castro is kind of this guy. He certainly is not a front runner. Mm-hmm. In this election, but his thing right now is he's saying that I know I'm not a front runner, but I've never been a front runner my whole life.
He's a guy that, look, I mean, he's not too radical or he's not radical enough for me, but he's a guy that, given where he's from, the Democrats should take a second look at. Mm-hmm. Just because if they're looking at the map, obviously, look, Texas isn't as red as they once were.
No, they're not.
No, I mean, you've had Beto O'Rourke, give Ted Cruz a run for his money in the Senate race. There was talks about Texas potentially going blue in the 2016 election. Obviously, that didn't happen.
And it's not going to happen this time.
It probably won't. But generally speaking, though, I mean, if the Democrats need to at least give these guys a look who are coming out of Texas. Mm-hmm. Just to see what they're about. I mean, they're not. They shouldn't Martin O'Malley them or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But they need to take a good look.
Well, the Democrats need to not Martin O'Malley anybody.
No, they don't.
That's what they need to really do here. They need to not coronate somebody.
Oh, absolutely not.
And that's
absolutely
what they did last time. And quite frankly, when they coronated Hillary Clinton last time, that wasn't the first time the Democrats had made that mistake.
No,
it really wasn't. Julian Castro. Let's talk presidential timber. Former Hub secretary, former mayor of a big city, albeit a big city, but still just mayor of a city. Not a lot of presidential timber there. And a big question got to ask, yes, he's from Texas. We've talked about how that's a big deal. Can he win his own home state of Texas? Probably not.
You know what, though? He's going to have... The thing about him, though, I mean, you see where he's from. You see where his political upbringing is. Not as far as, mayor of San Antonio, but... his federal political career. I mean, he was right there with Barack Obama.
Yeah,
Barack Obama is still a very popular figure in the Democratic Party. So, I mean,
but not in Texas.
Not in Texas, though.
Yeah.
But if he was to get the nomination, he's going to be getting probably a lot of support, a lot of campaigning by Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. Much more genuine campaigning from Barack Obama than, say, a Tulsi Gabbard would get from Barack Obama.
Sure. It's just that Beto O'Rourke has a decent chance of winning his own state of Texas. Julian Castro probably does not. Well, Julian Castro probably would not take the state of Texas, and if you can't take your big home state that you're from, you're really kind of losing.
Is Beto on the list?
You know what? I actually don't know if I have Beto on the list. I should, even though he hasn't officially announced. I don't believe. No, he definitely has not.
He hasn't announced yet. No,
I actually don't have him on the list, but we've brought him up a few times, and he's a guy that almost unseated a sitting Republican senator in
very
Texas.
well-known Republican senator too,
a former presidential candidate.
Yeah.
Since then, he has taken some stances on national issues that aren't going to help him win Texas. I'm not saying that they're bad in other places, but I don't think Beto O'Rourke is going to be maybe quite the shining star in the Democratic Party that we thought maybe he could potentially be at one point. But he may still announce a candidacy here. We do not know. I mean, there's a good chance we could have, 14 or 15 Democrats running here, at one point, or total. Some may drop out before.
I think he is. I think he probably will run. But I know what you're talking about. I know some of those things. I know he said he was talking about he thought it'd be a good idea to tear down the wall in El Paso.
Not going to go over well.
No, that's not going to go over well with people in Texas. But
and the truth is too, when you talk about a guy like Julian Castro, back to him for a second, he was mayor of San Antonio. So you think, oh wow, he's from Texas and he's a Democrat. San Antonio's a big city, and people think that, oh, it's Texas, they're all Republicans. No, the big cities go Democrat in Texas just like they do in the vast majority of other states.
Yeah.
I mean, Michigan is viewed, we're here in Michigan, so a lot of times we go back to that. Michigan is viewed as a swing state in a lot of ways. When's the last time Detroit had a Republican mayor? Many, many years ago, the 50s. It's the big cities typically have Democratic
think Detroit
mayors.
Runs Republican mayors even.
They usually run one guy usually runs in it, but the Democratic primary in essence decides who will be the true candidate. It's technically they kind of run it as a nonpartisan thing, and the two people who are front runners against each other are always two Democrats.
Yeah. That's why too. Even when a Democrat wins the presidency in the Electoral College, you still see the map, and it's still red in a lot of places.
Right.
That's just because a lot of the red states are states that are very rural.
Right.
Wyoming,
and it's even worse
Nebraska,
when you separate it by counties.
Yeah.
When you separate it by counties, you see
a lot of red.
Yeah. I mean, you see these tiny little areas, but there's a whole bunch of people live in those tiny areas, and they tend to vote Democrat.
Yep.
So Julian Castro, I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of him. I highly doubt he'll be the candidate.
Yeah, I don't think he will
for president. Somebody that I don't really even want to. I mean, if you have stuff to say, of course we can. But somebody who I really think is not worth mentioning that much, but she is running, is Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. I personally think she is done politically. With the things that have been exposed for her. Not to say that she won't be the senator from Massachusetts for the rest of her life. She will be. She's not going anywhere there. They like her. She's gonna get it. But Elizabeth Warren, 69 years old, senator from Massachusetts, has made claims about her American Indian heritage. They've been disproved, and then she lied about how she never actually said it officially, and then boom, they come out with a bunch of official things from her taking the bar and her lying about it on official documents all the way. Elizabeth Warren's done. I mean, she really is, she's done. She's very radical in a lot of her views, and if they're gonna run a radical, they're gonna run somebody... They're going to run Bernie. They're going to, so Elizabeth Warren, I know some people were big fans of hers. Adam, if there's something else you want to add on her, of course, please do. But I'll be shocked if Elizabeth Warren is still in this race come Iowa and New Hampshire. I think she'll drop out even before.
I see what you're saying, Josh, and I'm not saying you're wrong in any of it. I think the Democrats are... I think they're better off running somebody with not as much baggage.
Yeah, and that's all I mean.
As Elizabeth Warren currently has, and she will have. And it seems a little weird saying that, considering all the baggage that Donald Trump carries himself, and it keeps growing every single day.
Some people wear their baggage better than others. Bill Clinton was an example of a guy who had a ton of baggage, way more than Jerry Brown and Paul Tsongas, who he was running against at the time.
Yeah.
But he wore his baggage well, and he was young and idealistic and spoke amazingly well, and he was good looking, and people fell in love with him.
And the thing with Donald Trump too is he's got such that tight knit base, and he's got the support of the Republican Party, And that's not something that's getting away from him. And Donald Trump is one of the biggest bumbling idiots that has ever won political office. I mean, you listen to the guy talk, and you sit there and you wonder how this guy ever got elected president.
But that is his appeal also. It's the reason people hate him, and it's the reason people love him.
Yep. And I mean, bottom line, there's other candidates out there, and when we wrap this up too, I'll kind of say my piece a little bit more regarding it, but there's other candidates right now that are going to be running for the Democratic nomination that are right in line with Elizabeth Warren that don't have the baggage that she currently has.
Exactly. So, and personally, I think the only reason she is running is because she basically committed to running about like 3 years ago. Before the last election even happened, she had pretty much made the commitment to run this time. And she has since really been hit hard and fallen apart.
At the same time, though, too, Josh, I mean, like you said, what is she, 69 years old? Mm-hmm. She's 69 years old. What does she have to lose at this point?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, give it a shot. Give it a shot. Go out there, say what
mm-hmm.
Go out there with your platform. Tell the American people what you have to offer, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, the worst thing in the world for her right now, aside from the gaffes that she's had,
mm-hmm.
would be deciding not to run and then sitting there wondering, okay, well, what would have happened if I did run? Could I have overcome
mm-hmm.
the Native American thing with myself? She's never gonna know if she doesn't run.
Right.
So,
you're gonna see Senator Warren in some. You're gonna see her in some debates, in some Democratic Party debates. I said, my prediction, I will be surprised if she's actually still in the race come Iowa. I think she'll drop out before Iowa even happens.
I don't think she's gonna drop out before Iowa, but I don't think she's gonna make it very long. When did Hillary drop out against Obama?
Oh, quite a while.
Did she?
I mean, I think like Super Tuesday or something.
Was it Super Tuesday?
I don't know for sure, but she definitely was around for quite a while.
Okay.
She won some states too,
oh yeah.
So
Bernie won Michigan.
He did. Okay, I murdered this name, and I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong. And Adam, if you know it better, but Pete Buttigieg. Am I saying that right?
I'm horrible with names.
No,
myself.
I'm. So I've heard it pronounced a few ways. I honestly don't know which way is right, but Pete Buttigieg, again, another 37-year-old guy.
Very young
guy. Navy man, veteran of Afghanistan from the Navy. He is the first gay candidate, mm-hmm. basically. And he would be the first gay candidate of a major party. He would be the first gay president. Right now, he does have that appeal we had mentioned of being a Midwesterner. He does have that appeal, which is big, but there's people out there who have that appeal who aren't 37 and who have more presidential timber than simply being the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And so they've kicked this around in the past. Is the mayor of a city, is that enough to run for president? And they typically will say yes, but typically when they're saying that, they're the mayor of Los Angeles. They're the mayor of New York.
Yeah.
They're, mayor of Chicago. Mm-hmm. I could make a really good argument for. Mayor of South Bend, 37 years old. I don't think so. To be honest, and I don't know a ton about the guy. He seems like a pretty runnable candidate in a lot of ways.
What's his profession? I mean, because nobody's a politician, is he a lawyer? Let me see.
I think it was more he was a Navy guy. I think he was a Navy officer. Guy? Yeah, he was definitely in the Navy. He's definitely a veteran of Afghanistan.
Because he's got quite the background when it comes to. his resume alone, I mean, when it comes to his education, he went to Harvard. He got a BA from Harvard. He went to Pembroke. He went to Oxford. And then that was before, obviously, he went to the Navy. So he's obviously a brilliant guy.
Sure, for sure.
And he could very well be somebody, too, that you see, later on down the road.
And this is, we had mentioned earlier the idea that you're kind of running for your future, you're running for VP, you're running for a cabinet spot. Now this guy, he makes some noise in the primary a little bit. Somebody wins the presidency, and as a former Afghanistan veteran, he could be anywhere in the cabinet. I mean, that he can be put in the cabinet, and now he's presidential timber. Now, and he's only 37 years old right now. So he's got 25 years to finish his name. But I don't see the 37-year-old mayor of South Bend becoming the next president. Especially, honestly, too, they're talking about, the LGBT backing and that he is the first gay candidate. I kind of wonder a little bit if we would even have heard of him if he wasn't the first gay candidate. You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of the main thing that people bring up right away. And people would say that, oh, well, that hurt him. I mean, right now it's helping him. That he is gay.
He'd be the first Maltese president of the United States, too.
That's something. That is something.
I think I remember hearing an interview with him a few weeks ago. I think it was Wolf Blitzer, talking about how he'd be the first Maltese president of the United States, and he's like, yeah, it's not a big voting block, but we'll take all the help we can get.
Yeah, it's something. It's something. That is for sure. All right, here is somebody that we, is definitely going to make some noise in this thing, and that is Senator Kamala Harris of California. Again, California, always a big deal to run somebody from California. Mm-hmm. Biggest state in the union. She's 54 years old. Right on par.
Former Attorney General of California.
Right. Former Attorney General, now Senator. She's going to definitely make some noise here. She
already has with her announcement. She had a huge turnout to her announcement.
She is not the front runner.
No.
Bernie would definitely, I think, be considered the front runner, but she is easily in the 2-3 spot right now. Even with Joe Biden potentially joining, who we'll get to in a little while, she's still up there. She's still, firmly in the conversation. If there's 15 people who are going to be running, she is firmly in the top 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. Easily. This is just me talking personally. Personally, for me, she is the worst kind of politician and the worst kind of candidate because she is everything that I disagree with as a libertarian-minded person. I typically don't favor Democrats anyway, but she is like a Law and Order Democrat.
Oh yeah, no, that's exactly what I was gonna.
And this actually hurts her within her own party.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Josh.
She is a staunchly authoritarian individual.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris. That's going to be a hurdle that she's going to have to overcome and explain her positions on various issues. I know there's video for a lot of different things out there. There's very questionable videos though of her talking about the prison system in the United States and
putting
the justice system,
putting parents in jail when their kids skip school.
Yeah, this is. I mean, she referred to her as herself as a top cop before, and I'm sorry, that's not something that I want. No. I mean, I don't want a president who runs and who has run in the past as a law and order. To me, when I hear law and order, I hear authoritarian, totalitarian type of person.
Right, yeah.
That's not something that somebody should be running on.
Call me a paranoid radical, but when I hear somebody saying that they're the Law and Order or something, I instantly just hear like fascist.
Yeah,
that's what I hear.
Because generally speaking, too, when you're talking about a Law and Order candidate, what they're going to do, they're going to base a lot of their platform on, I'll use a George Bush term here, shock and awe.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to base it on a bunch of fear and what's going to happen to you on the streets if I'm not elected president.
Sure.
What's going to happen to your kids if I'm not elected president? What's going to happen to your sons, your daughters, your aunts, your uncles, your husbands, your wives if I'm not elected president? I don't think... I've never been a fan of somebody that runs on somebody else's fears. To me, that's not a healthy
I agree
candidacy,
with you.
a healthy way to run a country.
Adam, you may disagree with this next statement, but to me, a quote-unquote Law and Order Democrat, to me, is far scarier than a Law and Order Republican, because the Republican Party, although they're not a small government party, as many people like to say, they do have a good small government aspect built into their thing, to their platform, where when you have somebody who supports big government in so many ways and then wants to be extra harsh about penalties for people who commit crimes, even small crimes, that's a dangerous person to me. That is a very dangerous person. So I'm not a fan, but with that being said, I think she has great presidential timber, and I don't think she's going anywhere.
No, I don't think.
We're not here to talk about who I'm voting for.
Yeah, I don't think she's going anywhere either. I think that she's going to be right there. She's going to have a long run in the Democratic primary, and I'm not writing her off. I don't think you can. I mean, she's not only that. I mean, she's an immigrant. She's a woman. She's made a name for herself as being tough within those Senate hearings,
right?
Whether it's Jeff Sessions or whoever else, she's always up there, kind of stealing the microphone and causing a stir. And
the problem with that the Democrats may or may not have. I'm not saying that this will definitely cause a problem, but the Democratic Party has definitely, elements of it have definitely embraced socialism. But Bernie Sanders is a full-out socialist. He has, said this. He's proud of it. He does not...
He's not a socialist.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. He's a Democratic. He's a Democratic socialist.
Okay, I mean, he actually doesn't...
He's a reformist.
Okay, I mean, he won't condemn communist dictators when asked to. He won't even refer to them as dictators. The things he has said in his past, maybe he has attempted to go more towards the center, but he has spoken in defense of the USSR and Cuba many times in the past.
They're not socialists either.
Okay, that's fine. They're communist.
They're not communists either.
The USSR wasn't communist.
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're not.
Well, no, you say this because you jump on your not state communism thing. Which,
no, but it's true.
Okay,
it's true.
Adam, this is a great topic for.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. We sit here and we talk about how anarchism is thrown around in a misinterpreted term, and I agree. It's one of the most misinterpreted terms. Socialism.
I don't agree. But I'm not. No, but I don't want to shut you up either. So if you have more to add on it, please do it.
I'm saying the majority of the people out there that are rattling on about socialism, they're not talking about socialism.
Okay, well then you're going off an idea that socialism, the old idea, and just because it's old doesn't mean it's wrong. I'm not trying to say that, but that socialism's never really been attempted, so we can't say that it's bad. In that case, you could actually say the same thing.
I know that's a right way of thinking too. Like, the only thing that socialists could come back with is that real socialism has never been tried. That's stupid. Because you know what? It's true. It's
okay.
true.
I mean, I disagree. Okay, But that's fine. Like I said, I'm not trying to shut you up on it. If you have more to say on it,
Bernie
please.
Sanders is a democratic socialist. He doesn't want to get rid of capitalism. He wants to simply reform it.
Oh, he wants to get rid of capitalism. He doesn't want to get rid of democracy.
No, wait, what? Say that again?
He does want to get rid of capitalism.
No, he
doesn't want to get rid of democracy.
He doesn't want to get rid of capitalism.
Okay.
He's a dumb socialist.
Okay. I disagree with that interpretation and that definition.
Okay.
I mean, people love to say, oh, we have elements of socialism in our society already. Okay, true. People also love to... you could say the same thing that we've never really tried socialism. You could say the exact same thing about capitalism. We're not a capitalist country either, because the government regulates the hell out of our industry and regulates our big business. So to say that, that Bernie isn't a socialist or that the USSR wasn't communist, well, if that's true, then the United States of America certainly is not capitalist. I mean, so I'm just trying to find common ground so we can get to the other candidates.
Go ahead.
We're not
going to find common ground. So go ahead.
Well, okay. If we could, for the sake of this particular conversation, if we could at least acknowledge that the American voting public does view Bernie Sanders as a socialist. Because my only point on this that I was trying to make was that I am not putting it above the Democrats, many of whom are not even to the left of Bernie Sanders in most things. I'm not putting it above them to throw Bernie under the bus if people start screaming he's a socialist. And if they do that and it's working for them, I don't think the Democrats may throw him under the bus, and if that happens, then somebody like a Kamala Harris jumping in and taking the reins could easily happen. Because Bernie has a lot of baggage, too. He definitely does have a lot of baggage. And I don't actually even think he's to the left of most Democrats in a lot of ways, especially modern Democrats. Strangely enough, when you're talking about Bernie, I mean, some of Bernie's other stances, Bernie Sanders is to the right of Donald Trump on guns. Many of the things that Bernie Sanders, says through his want of democratic socialism, not socialism, but democratic socialism, are very similar to views that Donald Trump holds. Trade, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I'm saying is that if the Democrats, like they have in the past, decide to run away from Bernie and throw him under the bus, then there's a good chance somebody like Kamala Harris will jump in.
I don't think they're going to run away from him, though. I think that's one of Bernie's problems this time around is that there's too many other candidates out there that are embracing what he has to say or what he's had to say in the past. So what's Bernie Sanders going to do this time around to differentiate himself from those particular candidates? Mm-hmm. I mean, even Kamala Harris is, embracing some of Bernie Sanders' stances.
For sure. Another issue that could come into play with Bernie Sanders is simply his age.
No, that's definitely going to be coming there.
I mean, it could come into play, when I say that his age could come into play, it could come into play in two different ways. It could come into play by the electorate saying, he's too old, or it could come into play that he's actually too old and he gets sick and can't do it. The guy's going to be 79 years old. If his health takes a turn for the negative in the next year and a half, which could happen to anyone of that age, even if they aren't going through the rigorous, physical and mental ordeal that is running for president of the United States.
That was one of John McCain's problem when he's running against Barack Obama.
Yeah. I mean, he's old now. He might really get old, I'll use somebody from my own family as an example. My grandfather was a big, tough Marine. Mm-hmm. Great guy, athlete. I mean, his idea of a Saturday when he was 75 years old was, they lived up north in a kind of rural, rustic area, His idea of a Saturday at 75 years old was him and his buddies, all his age, would go over and chop wood from 6 a.m. till 5, 5 in the afternoon, and then light campfires and drink beer all night. Mm-hmm. When he was 77 years old, he was playing catch with his grandkids, and not like old man grandpa catch, Yeah. I mean, still had a wicked arm, throwing baseballs at, 70 miles an hour. I mean, big tough dude. Super, you at 78, you never would have guessed that he was over 68. Mm-hmm. And he died at 80. I mean, he did. He all of a sudden went from the youngest 77-year-old I'd ever seen in my life to the oldest 80-year-old I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's
I mean, you can take a turn quick.
Yeah, that's what
it does
happens.
not take much. Mm-hmm. And that's I'm just giving it a personal element, to somebody in my own life, and I'm not wishing that on Bernie or anything, but it can absolutely happen. We have never had a candidate this old.
Even
Ever.
Joe Biden has come out and said too that because he's like I said, he's probably going to run,
right.
But
yeah, Joe Biden's not much younger. He looks younger, but he's not.
He's come out. I mean, he came out and said, I'm paraphrasing. I said, go ahead and make age an issue with me. Ask me questions about it,
mm-hmm.
and how I'm going to manage it. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but that's generally speaking along the lines of what he's said.
Sure.
And we talked about we mentioned the John McCain thing. His age was an issue
mm-hmm.
in the 2008 election with Barack Obama, and I think that he didn't help himself when he chose Sarah Palin as his vice president, especially, and that's going to be extremely important when it comes to Bernie Sanders too. If he does get the nomination, who's his VP going to be?
Right.
It's got to be somebody who people think can run the country, not just somebody who's going to be sitting there on the sidelines and breaking ties in the Senate.
Well, and the thing is, Adam, too, is that who would be the exact Sarah Palin for Bernie Sanders? And John McCain picked the pretty, quirky woman from Alaska, the off the beaten path, the governor of Alaska, way out, out in Republican Haven, Alaska, not even connected to the United States. It'd be Tulsi Gabbard. Bernie Sanders could pick the young, pretty representative from Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Hawaii is the opposite of Alaska, like in every single way. There are these. There are two states that aren't connected, and one's a Republican stronghold, one's a Democratic stronghold, and they have very few electoral votes.
I guess there are some differences, though, between the two of them, though, and the choices. Tulsi Gabbard is in many ways has the same line of thinking as Bernie Sanders does.
Yeah,
Sarah Palin didn't have the same.
No, that's true.
Didn't have the same political ideology really as John McCain.
No,
and Tulsi Gabbard is also a congresswoman too.
Right.
Sarah Palin was obviously governor of Alaska.
Sure.
So
personally, I mean, I think Sarah Palin was a terrible pick. I don't want Sarah Palin to be president of the United States, but ideologically speaking, I agree a hell of a lot more with Sarah Palin than I do with John McCain. John McCain is like your, kind of typical moderate, and in a lot of ways he's the, you could slap Republican or Democrat on him, and I don't think it really would matter. Like he could fit into either mold, and he's really was never my kind of candidate. And I voted for him, but I didn't really care to, I mean, I really was like, ugh, can't believe I'm voting for this guy. But, I did. The thing is, what else was I going to say about Bernie? Oh, this could potentially cause a problem with him in the primary, too, is that, one of the things, not all Democrats, one of the things you've heard from a lot of Democrats over the past decade is the problem with this country is old white men. Mm-hmm. And what's Bernie Sanders? Well, he's the oldest, whitest dude around, and that could potentially be a problem for him in the primaries. And it could jump to a place where, a Kamala Harris could dethrone him, especially if he falters a little bit. Bernie has a lot more baggage in his past that is going to get thrown at him. And one thing I found to be strange is that you've seen videos and quotes from Bernie from way back in the day pop up now that you never saw in the last election. Almost like people have been sitting on him for 10 years, just in case. But they didn't want to... The Republicans didn't want to show him before because he's giving Hillary a little run for her money. Let's let him go. Let's not bash him. Well, now the Republicans are going to bash him. Before, the only bashing Bernie got from the Republicans was silly old socialist.
The Democrats, too, have tended to do very, very well when they've run younger candidates, especially in this case. I mean, because you look at the last two presidential candidates, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton. Before that, Jimmy Carter. Mm-hmm. How old was Jimmy Carter when he was elected president? He wasn't an old guy.
Young guy. I mean, he was younger than, not younger when elected, but younger than Reagan and Bush.
Yeah. I mean, before that, Lyndon Johnson wasn't elected. He was elected. Was he elected?
Yeah,
second term?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Kennedy.
Yeah, Kennedy.
Young guy.
Very young guy.
Young guy. So the Democrats,
youngest ever elected.
Yeah, Democrats do very, very well when they elect or when they nominate younger candidates.
No, youngest president ever elected, JFK, second youngest president ever elected, Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know if that's something they want to take this time around when considering their nomination and who they want to put up there against Donald Trump. But, I mean, I see what you're saying, too, about the old white guy and whatnot, but you also have to take a look at the issues and where they stand on the issues. Yes, Kamala Harris is a daughter of an immigrant. She's a female, California.
But in a general election, Bernie Sanders does not lose one Democratic vote for being an old white guy.
No, he doesn't.
One.
No.
In primaries, though, maybe.
But when people are taking a look at that, though, and if you want to go further left with the Democratic Party, you shouldn't be choosing Kamala Harris. You should be choosing Bernie Sanders.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, and when it comes to something like that, gender and age has nothing to do with it.
Well, and you and I constantly on this show, I shouldn't say constantly, but we talk a lot about the political graph spectrum, if you will. And Kamala Harris is very much on the left, but she's
further
left
up.
North.
She's further.
She's northwest. Big time.
Let's just say, and I don't want to go this extreme with it, but I will. She is closer to Lenin than Bernie Sanders is.
I agree.
And again, that's an extreme example that I probably shouldn't have used, but
no, there's nothing wrong with that example. I
didn't say Stalin.
Right. That's when I'm talking about this. I try to avoid. I'll use Lenin. I'll use Mussolini. I'll use other people like that. I avoid Stalin and Hitler because Stalin and Hitler were not evil because they were communists and fascists. They were evil because they're mass murderers.
Yeah,
they were psychopathic mass murderers.
Yeah.
That's why they were evil. Regardless, I'm not saying I agree with the ideologies of Stalin or Hitler. I think they're terrible ideologies. But these guys were mass murderers. That's what makes them really, really suck. So I don't go off their ideologies. I try to avoid them. But I'll mention Lenin. I'll mention Mussolini. I'll mention Franco. I'll even throw in a Castro if you want. But I agree with you. I agree with that statement. Yeah, she is probably closer to Lenin than Bernie Sanders is. Let's throw in a couple more. Senator Amy, this is another name I might screw up. I'm sorry if I did.
Klobuchar.
Klobuchar. That's okay. That's how I was going to say it. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
Senator Amy Klobuchar. She is from Minnesota, 58 years old. This is another person. Midwestern ideals. That's would be big for them. That's definitely something that could potentially steal votes from Donald Trump, and win some of those Midwestern states that, in essence, won Donald Trump the presidency. I view her as a huge, viable sleeper candidate here.
Personally speaking, no fucking way.
No, you're not into her?
No fucking way. No, you talk about... Jesus Christ, you talk about status quo candidate. Amy Klobuchar. Not to mention she's a huge fucking bitch too. All the stuff that you're hearing coming out regarding her.
The thing is with her, and the reason I call her a sleeper candidate, actually I don't even call her a sleeper candidate, I call her a potentially viable sleeper candidate. But her questioning of Justice Kavanaugh is more likely to hurt her and push her out of this race, but it could help her. It could help her, especially considering that before, during, and after that, she is still hugely popular in her own state of Minnesota. The people of Minnesota love this woman. So right now, she's got a good name for herself, even though a lot of what she did is questionable. But does she lose Democratic votes for what she did to Kavanaugh? Maybe not. Does it make the Republicans hate her? Definitely. I'm not a fan, but hey, keep in mind here, guys. I'm not big on the Republicans right now either.
She's gonna get. She will if she's nominated. She will steal some center leaning Republicans. She will.
She could. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
she will. The further left wing of the Democratic Party isn't going to be happy with her at all. And another reason why I don't like, a lot of people might refer to us as idealistic in some of our
you're talking about you and I.
You and I, yes. More so on the north south as opposed to the left right.
Definitely.
Something that turns me off about her, and I did talk about the status quo with her. I don't like candidates that go out there and just say something cannot be done just because they refer to as idealistic. To me, somebody who is like that is somebody who just doesn't want to try, who has no interest in trying, who's perfectly comfortable with the way that things are in Washington on most days. And to me, that's, things can be better than that.
Yeah.
I don't want a candidate that just says that we can't do it just because it's too pie in the sky and it just can't be done.
Well,
I don't like that.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And this is why the antithesis of that, in essence, would be like a Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, he was so beloved by this country because he wasn't above saying that, no, that seems impossible, but we can do it. We're America. We can do this. Senator Amy Klobuchar comes from Minnesota, which is a Midwestern state, and there would be good reason, as we had previously mentioned.
Michael Dukakis come from Minnesota.
Right. Okay, I'm going to name some other. He was one of them I was going to say. Okay. I did Michael Dukakis. Walter Mondale did.
Where's Michael Dukakis? I thought Michael Dukakis came from Minnesota, too. I'm going to check it out.
Okay, go for it. Okay, I'm going to name a few other people, though. Al Franken.
Massachusetts, I think it was.
Okay. Walter Mondale was from Minnesota,
yeah,
for sure. That's the only state he won against
Reagan.
Against Reagan. Yeah. The biggest ass kicking in the history of electoral politics is Ronald Reagan versus Walter Mondale. Dude won 525-3 or 525-10. Those numbers are just stupid. As Dennis Miller said back in the day, dude only got 10 more electoral votes than I did, and I didn't even run. But
the 88 presidential, it wasn't that. I mean, it wasn't that. I mean, it was. I guess, a landslide for Bush.
For Bush Senior.
I mean, he won 53.4% to 45.6.
No, yeah, not that much of a.
But I mean, he won California. Bush did.
Yeah, which is crazy.
But
That's 3 times in a row winning California for the Republicans. But the reason I bring up Jesse Ventura and Al Franken for Minnesota is, does Klobuchar, Ventura, and Franken, what does that tell you about the people of Minnesota? Does it tell you that they're left? No. Does
They're
it tell
all
you
over
that
the
they're
fucking
right?
place.
It tells you that they're fucking weird, is what it tells you. It tells you that they're crazy in Minnesota. I'm sorry. That's what it tells you. It's probably the freezing cold temperatures going to their brain. It tells you that they're crazy there. So will that transfer to the rest of the country? Probably not.
I'm sorry. We gotta get Jesse Ventura on deep issues.
we do. It would be so great. He's not doing anything anymore.
Yeah, what is he doing right now?
Really, but that's what it proves, is that people from Minnesota like electing weirdos. They love it. They think it's awesome. They think it's super cool to elect total weirdos to their positions. Like, people have elected actors, but has anyone actually elected a sketch comedy actor? No, we'll do it though. I mean, Republicans and Democrats are bad. Let's elect a third party candidate. That sounds awesome, right? Who are you gonna elect? We're gonna elect Jesse Ventura. We're gonna elect a pro wrestler. Not even a good one. I mean, they didn't elect Hulk Hogan. They didn't elect, like, Macho Man Randy Savage. They elected, like, Jesse Ventura was like the guy you watched on Saturday morning lose.
Oh, God, can you imagine? Oh man, Macho Man as senator.
Oh yeah, I can mention it.
Oh man, coming out.
Can imagine it.
Coming out to his theme music onto the Senate floor.
It's like it's pretty much President Camacho for Mediocrity is what we're talking about at this point.
With Queen Sherry. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, sensational Sherry.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But so yeah, I mean, Klobuchar, I don't know. Like I said, viable sleeper candidate, but probably not. Probably not. We haven't mentioned Senator Cory Booker, New Jersey. This is a guy who can make some noise. 49 years old, former mayor of Newark, now senator of New Jersey. New Jersey is what, 9th biggest state, I believe, electorally. Nothing to scoff at. I like this dude's chances a lot, actually.
Cory Booker?
Yeah, I really do. He's had some gaffes recently. He's come out for some things that maybe he came out for him a little too quick. But I really like this guy's chances. You know, I think I like how he gives interviews. You know, he's not one of those guys that seems to need to write you a book every time you ask him a question. People like that. I really, if it's not one of the top dogs, I could definitely see a Cory Booker being in there. You know, a lot the same way I talked about Kamala Harris, I could see that, but I think Cory Booker represents less problems within the Democratic Party than Kamala Harris does. So, I mean, this is a guy who, not a front runner, but this guy's got a decent chance here.
I think he's going to have to explain less of his own views than Kamala Harris would.
I agree.
So
I agree. You know what? Let's real quick. We've already talked about him quite a bit today, but let's talk about Donald Trump, because that is.
Do you want to talk about Uncle Joe?
Oh, I do. I do. I just wanted to try to get in the official candidates first.
Okay.
If we could, you know. So that's why I'm jumping parties. But yeah, I got Uncle Joe on here. But Donald Trump is the sitting president. He will most likely be the presidential candidate, although he is going to have at least some form of primary opposition. Adam does not think that Donald Trump is going to win re-election. I do, actually. I mean, I do. For one thing, just it's very hard to lose as an incumbent in this country. We've seen that, you know, in... I mean, hell, that's been true for 120 years, you know.
Again, I'm I'm not betting my kid.
Oh, I get it. I get it. You're just saying he's very, very beatable, and and you're not wrong. You are not wrong in that. He's a strange president. It's very difficult to tell with Donald Trump because so much of what people have predicted about Donald Trump just doesn't come true. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, he is that candidate. He's that guy that
we both said during the election that he was done.
Oh, for sure.
At certain points.
Yeah, absolutely. More than once, I said it.
Yeah.
You know, and really, more than once, I said he was done, and
even up until election day, I thought it was going to be a landslide. I thought the election was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Part of that is malfeasance by the media.
Yeah, we were doing a show that night. Yeah. We were covering it that night, and oh my God, awful night.
Part of that is us believing the media. You know, I mean, because we were told that he didn't have a chance over and over again, and who else are you supposed to believe? You know? So, I mean, it's probably going to be Trump. I am kind of even kicking around the idea that I believe there's a segment within the Democratic Party. Of course they want to win, but there are certain parts that the best of the Democrats are not going to run this time. They're going to hold back until 2024 because if you're the best of the best and you really want to be president, you really think you have a chance, you're not going to run against an incumbent. You know, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whatever it is, you're just not going to do it.
And the Democrats, too, right now have a number of candidates that can certainly wait until 2024 to do that.
A key one that has been brought up in the past is somebody you are not going to see run against Donald Trump is Oprah Winfrey. You know, I mean, there were whispers of an Oprah Winfrey candidacy for president, and it's not going to happen this time because she's going to wait. She's going to wait till 2024. If she runs, she's going to wait till 2024.
I don't think she's going to run at all. Not anymore.
I don't know if she is or not. I actually tend to think she might. I really do think that she might. But she's not going to run this time. Who is running, somebody we should have brought up, because she technically did announce her candidacy for president, is Marianne Williamson. I don't know if you're familiar with her at all.
That?
She is Oprah Winfrey's spiritual guide.
Oh, God.
And she is the author of A Return to Love. Sorry, I'm laughing at my own notes. I wrote it as she's into inner peace and shit. But she's been a big part of Oprah's show. I guess I don't know. I've seen Oprah's show maybe 3 times in my entire life.
Is Vermin Supreme running again?
I think he might have died.
He didn't die.
He might have died.
Let me see that.
I'm not sure, but yeah, we should talk about Vermin Supreme. But she's been a big part of Oprah's show since 1992. She's been Oprah Winfrey's spiritual guide.
No, he's still alive.
Is he? Oh,
yeah.
Good. Well, I know who I'm voting for.
He's a libertarian now.
Is he?
Yeah, that's what it says.
This time? That guy cracks me up. Vermin Supreme's awesome. We'll definitely cover Vermin Supreme in the future. I'm sure he's. Yeah, is he a libertarian? Last time he was saying that he was a friendly fascist. Because remember he was saying that he was gonna he was a friendly fascist because he was gonna give everybody a pony, and he was also going to but he was going to put in severe fines for people that don't brush their teeth.
So is that why he's a friendly fascist?
Yeah, because he acknowledged that it was a big step against liberty to have compulsory teeth brushing, but that it was undoubtedly better for all.
You know what?
Everyone
if that makes him a fascist, then you know what? That's something I can get on board with. People need to brush their teeth, man.
Yeah, you really should brush your teeth. He's right about that. He is right about that. You really should brush your teeth.
I don't know if Hitler ever mentioned that though.
I don't think so.
Was that Mein Kampf at all about?
I don't know. I couldn't get through the whole thing. That book's too damn long. But most likely we're going to see Trump in there. I highly doubt Marianne Williamson is going to make too big
Vermin
of a splash.
Supreme has been he's been an independent Republican, Democrat, and a Libertarian.
I think whatever he can make the most noise in the primary, I think is what he runs as. He's probably a Libertarian because they maybe actually have a Libertarian primary now. Because a lot of states now have a Libertarian primary the same way that they have a Republican. Michigan, for instance, just did it for the first time. had a legit libertarian primary.
Friendly fascist.
Let's talk about Uncle Joe.
Probably got more votes, though, than Martin O'Malley did.
Did he?
Probably.
Oh, he might have. Or Lincoln Chafee.
Yeah. Who was your guy? Joe Webb?
Joe Webb. I like that guy. I wonder if he'll come out, because he was a Bernie supporter.
Was he a Bernie supporter?
Yeah.
Well, he just hated Hillary so much, too.
He did, yeah. Yeah. No, Joe Webb, they claim, was... him and Bernie had an old friendship, and they were kicking around the idea of those two being a ticket. Yeah. But Joe Webb never really got any traction. But because they were buddies, but they were also very much opposites within the Democratic Party. Joe Webb was a very traditional kind of JFK pro-military Democrat.
Yeah, he was an old school Democrat.
Yeah.
Not old school in the sense of...
He was a genuine liberal, actually. You know, I mean, he actually was very pro-gun and very, you know, and he was very much put the lib back in liberal, I guess. Joe Biden, 76 years old, former VP and senator from Delaware, right? Yeah, Delaware. Joe Biden could be an instant front-runner or top 2 guy in this thing if he decides to jump in, which it sounds like he's gonna.
I think he is.
You know, I mean, for someone who says he's not sure if he's running, he's given a whole lot more speeches than, you know, somebody who isn't running is giving. And when you're making comments such as, my family tells me they really want me to run, that's a pretty good indicator that he's going to probably throw his hat in the ring.
Jim Webb, not Joe Webb.
Is it Jim Webb? Okay,
Yeah.
we were saying Joe. My bad. Our bad. It's been a while. It's been 3 years since we talked about that guy. But Joe Biden, I don't know. I mean, who's the front runner if Joe Biden jumps in? Is it him or is it Bernie? Probably still Bernie, but maybe it could switch.
I think it's Biden. I think it's Biden if he jumps in.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and the
I
thing
think Bernie's definitely up there, though.
Sure. Oh, they're the top 2.
Yeah.
If he jumps in, they're the top 2 for sure. And
they're going to be right next to each other on the debate stage.
Biden would also be, he is older than Trump. He would be the oldest guy ever elected. But he's a solid year younger than Bernie still. So he's up there. He's 76. I think he's about a year and a half younger than Bernie, actually. But he's pretty well liked. He's got some goofy stuff in his past, though, too, that is going to be hard to overcome. And that's kind of normal for a guy that's just been in politics for 45 years.
He's not a left-leaning Democrat, too.
No, he's not.
He's very, very much a center-of-the-road Democrat.
I really, really believe that had it been Biden versus Trump last time, that Biden would have won easily. I truly believe that. Does he beat Trump? You know, I think he would have beat Apprentice star Donald Trump for president easily. Does he beat President Trump? I don't know. That's tough. You know, that is tough. Trump and Biden on a debate stage.
Oh my
Trump's
God.
going to be obnoxious as hell, but he's probably going to win those debates, honestly. You know,
Against Biden?
Yeah, I mean, he's just more of a presence, you know. I mean, a lot of people are going to come out maybe liking Biden because they're going to think that Trump goes too far with it.
I don't think Donald Trump wins any debate against really any candidate. But you know what?
But you really dislike him.
No, it doesn't matter though. It doesn't matter whether or not Donald Trump wins those debates. Donald Trump could, like I said, Donald Trump can lose every single debate, which I think he did for the very most part when he was a candidate. It just doesn't matter. That's not why people vote for Donald Trump. And I think Donald Trump knows that too. Donald Trump knows that he doesn't have to win those debates.
Donald Trump, in a lot of ways too, he's such a different animal.
He just has to win the debate with public opinion.
We don't know that Donald Trump will have debates. You don't have to.
No, you don't.
You know, you actually don't.
In fact, he didn't show up to a debate during the
and
campaign.
his numbers went up.
Yeah.
But most sitting presidents have had debates, and most of them go with the common theme they've had is 3 presidential, 1 VP debate. This has been a theme for a while. There have been presidents who turned it down. Jimmy Carter, for instance, didn't want to debate. He didn't want to debate Ronald Reagan. They finally, at the end, through pulling teeth, convinced him to have one. He had one debate with Reagan. But you don't have to. You don't have to debate. And the sitting president may or may not decline his right to debate.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter didn't want to debate Ronald Reagan, probably for good reason. They debated once, and Ronald Reagan beat the crap out of him. Made him look silly. And at the time, Ronald Reagan ended up looking way better in that because John Anderson was running as an independent, and the press wanted to put all 3 of them in a debate, and then have and Jimmy Carter flat out refused. So what Ronald Reagan did is he said, well, I'll be in 2 debates. I'll do one with Anderson and one with Jimmy Carter. And he ended up, looking great for doing that, and Carter looked like a sissy. Will Donald Trump end up looking like a sissy? I don't know. It's tough to say. One thing we can be pretty much certain of that Trump won't do is he's not going to participate in a primary debate with other Republicans.
No, he won't do that.
I'm fairly certain that he will not do that. And as of right now, the only one who we know for sure is running against him is William Weld. Has announced his candidacy for president as a Republican.
Okay.
So he will be primarying Donald Trump. He will have a, primary competitor. How big a deal is that?
Not at all.
Maybe not at all. William Weld, or Bill Weld, as people may recall, is the former governor of Massachusetts as a Republican, but more recently, he was the former running mate of Gary Johnson as a Libertarian. So he has bounced back and forth between the 2 parties, between Republican and Libertarian. To his credit, he hasn't changed his ideology much at all. He was a very libertarian Republican while he was governor of Massachusetts, and he was a very conservative libertarian as so he hasn't changed. I like Bill Weld.
You said you thought he should have been the candidate over
Absolutely.
Gary Johnson.
Absolutely. And I don't hate Gary Johnson. I do feel like he gets a bad rap to some degree, but Gary Johnson he's a goofy dude. He's a goofy dude. I do think he is I think he's a better candidate. I think he's a better potential executive, and I think he just has better views. More views that just make more sense.
I wish William Weld would get a fair shot, because I think he would. I think he would offer the Republicans a lot more.
Yeah.
Than what Donald Trump has to offer them. And that's something that I've mentioned stuff about that before. I've mentioned about, not wanting constituents, or, to get duped by candidates who I didn't think were genuine. So I thought when Ted Cruz won Iowa, I thought good for the Republicans of Iowa, because Ted Cruz is far more genuine in what he had to say than Donald Trump was. And I think that'd be the case this time around too, with Weld and Trump in a primary. I would hope that Republicans would give Weld a chance and hear what he has to say.
Doesn't sound like they're gonna.
No, they won't.
Okay, here's my big theory about William Weld. He is running. Chances are he was going to run in some capacity anyway, whether the Libertarians were going to give him a candidacy or not. He's going this route instead to attempt to primary a sitting president. He probably doesn't have the clout to do that, the name recognition or the clout to do that. But my big theory about Bill Weld, as former Massachusetts governor, is that he is doing nothing more than testing the primary waters for another former Massachusetts governor in Mitt Romney. I think he's throwing his hat in the ring to see if there really is...
Oh, he's the canary?
I do think he is the canary in the coal mine to see if Mitt Romney has a chance
and you see...
to jump in there. Mitt Romney became senator of Utah for this potential opportunity to primary Trump, but right now it's not looking like it's going to go great for him if he does.
You know what? I see what you're saying, and I'm not saying you're wrong or anything like that, but everything that I said about Elizabeth Warren, I'm going to say the same thing about Mitt Romney. I know Mitt Romney's already run for president before, and he lost to Barack Obama, but Mitt Romney is in a no-lose situation himself. Obviously, he could lose the primary and not be nominated for president here. But you look at what Mitt Romney is. Mitt Romney has, ever since, well, I don't want to say ever since, because he did get Trump support when he was running against Obama, but ever since Donald Trump was a serious candidate for the office of the president, Mitt Romney has always been a critic of his.
He has.
And he continued to be a critic of Donald Trump, and he hasn't said...
It's gotten a lot of grief from the Republican Party for doing so.
And he hasn't said much about Donald Trump now. If Mitt Romney was to go and primary him, I don't think it would hurt him too much as far as his standing, especially in Utah, because Utah, the Mormon population there, they're not exactly high on Donald Trump either.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Adam, completely, actually. And much like Elizabeth Warren, regardless of what he does in this, he can probably still be senator from Utah for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
It just like Elizabeth Warren, even if she crashes and burns in this big time and is made to look foolish, she will still be senator from Massachusetts.
Elizabeth Warren will always find
life.
a home with Massachusetts,
right.
Just like Mitt Romney will always have a home with.
And these people aren't young. If they want to be in there for 2 more terms, which is going to put them well into elderly status, if they serve 12 more years in their as a senator, then they'll have it.
Yes,
they have it.
I mean that's why I don't think necessarily that. It could be. I could certainly see the strategy behind having William Weld go out and test the waters, but I don't necessarily think that he needs it. I think he.
Well, and also,
and the thing with Mitt Romney too is he is a genuine name within the Republican Party too that could potentially turn a lot of heads.
Sure. It could. What hurts him, that helps him and it hurts him. What hurts him is the Republicans are going to say, Mitt Romney, this guy couldn't beat Obama. He couldn't beat McCain. He could, this will technically be the 3rd time he's running for president.
I know. I probably sound like a Trojan horse too when it comes to a lot of Republicans. I'm like, run Romney.
Yeah, no.
Run Romney, but
you do, and I do when I'm talking about the Democrats too.
Again, I see the argument against Romney, but keep in mind, too, Barack Obama went on to become a very, very popular president within his own party.
Yeah, so did Donald Trump.
But Barack Obama also left with very favorable ratings when he left the Oval Office. I don't think that anybody should hold losing to Obama against Romney like they would Hillary Clinton losing to Donald Trump.
I don't, Adam, and I've had this discussion with many Republicans over the years who disagree with me, and I fall back to the thing that I've been saying here all night, and that's an incumbent president is extremely difficult to defeat in this country. Yeah. Extremely difficult to defeat. And they want to point fingers at Romney lost the election here, Romney lost the election there. It wasn't an easy election to win. It really wasn't. So I'm not, I'm not buying it. What I think Mitt Romney, if my theory has any validity, what I think the idea is with Weld is if Weld gets just a little bit of traction, and then Mitt Romney jumps in and gets some more traction, that's a potential ticket.
Romney Weld.
Then Weld drops out, backs Romney, and you have a legitimate anti-Trump segment of the Republican Party. Where the Republicans aren't going to like this, the party of Republicans, is they're going to view this as, hey, a lot of us technically would rather have Mitt Romney. And if this was the general election and we just got to choose all by ourselves, we might pick Mitt Romney. But they're not going to want to give up the opportunity to run an incumbent president, which is huge. Mm-hmm. You know.
No, you're right.
You know, and like we said, you know, it has been attempted. It's never succeeded.
Not to mention
they have unseated sitting presidents and ran somebody else, but not since the primary era. You know, a lot of people kind of forget about that if you're not, and I'm not saying this in a critical way to say that people don't know history, but this is something that a lot of people don't quite realize, that primaries don't date back to 1789. You know, primaries date back to the 1920s. Mm-hmm. You know, and even then, they weren't as official as they are now. You know, even in the 60s, the primaries still weren't exactly there. You know, I mean, JFK didn't really run in all the primaries. You know, it was a very different animal before that. Mm-hmm. So, really, there's been very few instances of this. You know, I mean, Ronald Reagan running against Gerald Ford is obviously the big one. Pat Buchanan running against George Bush Sr. is another one that he made some noise. More noise than people thought he was going to make. Mm-hmm. You know, almost won New Hampshire. And had he won that, it might have happened. It didn't, though. So what most likely would have happened in that semi-famous thing with Pat Buchanan, you know, almost taking New Hampshire against George Bush, the worst that would have happened was George Bush might have dropped Dan Quayle and snatched up Pat Buchanan to shut him up as his VP. And honestly, might have won him the election. You know, I mean, really, it might have been a good move anyway.
I think for everything that we've said about Donald Trump and him being, you know, a wild card and just about everything, you know, the all bets are off, mm-hmm. you know, aspect when it comes to him as a president and as a candidate too. For all the reasons that we think that you can't write him off as reclaiming the White House once again in 2020, I think that you have to look at it the other way too, and especially when it comes to a primary on the Republican side of things here, that I don't think you could really write off anybody running against him too, just because the candidate himself is just so completely off the rail when it comes to. That's why I never liked.
It's hard to measure.
It's very, very hard to measure. Now, I hate the added notion now that people still tend to use. Well, he's not a politician. He's not a politician. He's a politician. Yeah. He's been a politician for a long time too. Not just these past 2 years during the years as a candidate running mm-hmm. for president. Donald Trump has been a politician as a real estate mogul from New York. You have to be some type of have to have some type of political, you know, knowledge mm-hmm. doing that.
And even so, I tend to agree with you, Adam, uh-huh. but even so, that point became moot and that discussion became irrelevant mm-hmm. the minute he ran for president and won.
Yeah.
Now he's a politician. Yeah, you know, I mean, he's the president of the United States, so he's a politician.
I just think all bets are off, and in every aspect when it comes to mm-hmm. to Donald Trump. Just because you said you can't measure him,
sure,
I don't think you can measure any of it. I think if Mitt Romney were to announce that he was going to primary, or if somebody else were to do that, then you know what? Yes, there has been it's unheard of a primary candidate knocking off an incumbent, but they weren't running against Donald Trump.
What's strange too is that if Mitt Romney runs, he will run as a member of the GOP, mm-hmm. and he will run and win or lose. More likely lose. But either way, he will run and he will win or lose as a member of the GOP. Say that Mitt Romney, by some measure, runs in the primary against Donald Trump, wins, becomes the Republican candidate. Donald Trump will probably run as an independent.
You probably will.
And he probably will. And he has every right to do that. Mm-hmm. And he might end up being the first independent president because what a unique situation that would be that now the former Republican president is running as an independent incumbent. It might help him. I mean, it genuinely might help him. It might actually win him some votes if he all of a sudden now is criticizing the Republicans too. And it might genuinely win him some votes. Mitt Romney will not run as an independent if he loses in the primary, if he even runs. To finish up the potential Republican primary, the only other guy I see running, if you have some more, go ahead and throw him in. But I was
going to say, does that if Donald Trump runs as an independent and Mitt Romney is the GO? I know we're completely off. We sound like we're completely off the wall right now, though.
Oh yeah, and we're talking out of our we're making stuff up right now.
But
it's all just conjecture.
But does that pretty much guarantee that the election's going to go down to the House?
I would say it probably gives it to the Democrats, but it could definitely go to the House then. It absolutely positively could go to the House, and I would love to see that. God, I would love to see that.
God, and then but the Senate,
just as a historian, I would love to see that.
But the Senate then in charge of the still going Republican. So does that mean you'd see the first Democratic president with a Republican vice president? I mean, is that what would happen? Probably.
Yeah, it could. Definitely, it could.
Because the House would sit there and pick the president
right
out of those three, but then the Senate would pick the vice president based on those three, on the three vice presidents that were running along with them. But they don't have to vote for that. Whoever wins is
right.
Yeah,
right, and they could potentially, if they all agree on it, the Senate could make Donald Trump or Mitt Romney the vice president in that scenario, and also it's tough to say. We'll have to break it down if this actually becomes a thing. When the time comes, we'll have to break it down to see if the Democrats would indeed win in the House, because it doesn't. Not every House rep gets a vote. Each state gets a vote. So, like that one dude who's the House rep of Montana, he gets a vote. But then the 45 members of the House from California all vote, and then they get one vote. Based on their vote, So it would be, just because the Democrats control the House doesn't necessarily mean they win the House, that they win the election. But we'd have to break that down and look at it. And it doesn't have to be, it isn't like an electoral majority. So if that were to happen,
it's popular at that point.
Right, and, yeah, exactly. So basically, if it really got nasty, and say in this instance it's, Bernie v. Romney v. Trump, if the Republicans can't agree to either pick Trump or Romney, then, then it could just go Bernie for that reason. Because Bernie could win 40% of the vote and have the other 60% split between Trump and Romney. So, I mean, it would be it could be a big mess. But that'd be so fun.
So you can see President Joe Biden and Vice President Mike Pence.
You could, yeah, you definitely could, and that would probably be what it would be, And God, that doesn't sound that terrible to me. It really doesn't. It doesn't sound that awful to me.
Oh man.
There's been worse things out there. That doesn't sound that bad to me. The only other Republican I see potentially making a primary run would be John Kasich.
Yeah.
And I hope he doesn't. I think it'll be disastrous, actually, if he does. I think it's actually kind of a disaster on several levels. I don't think he has a chance in hell, for one thing, of dethroning Trump. And also, if he were to jump in while Romney and Weld are potentially running, it'll just throw a monkey wrench into the whole thing. It'll probably screw it up, and it's not good for... Not only will it not work for John Kasich, but it probably will make a mess of any Republican opposition.
Which
is a long shot anyway.
I mean, there's been talk about John Kasich getting into a primary for a long time now. There's also talk about him, having a dual ticket with the governor of Colorado.
As independents?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
So
running third party.
who knows? Who knows?
If he were to do that, it would simply be to try to screw up Trump, to try to give the election to the Democrats. And honestly, I don't think it'll even work. I really don't. If John Kasich were to run third party, I think he'd be lucky if he had 6 or 7% of the vote, and I don't even think it'll matter.
Yeah,
I really don't.
I don't have a problem really with people running third party.
Nor do I.
I don't. I mean, it's another choice, and I hate. Take for instance, I don't like when people sit there and rag on like a Jill Stein for stealing votes away from Hillary.
Neither do I.
I very much take your stance when you say just come up with two better candidates.
Yeah.
It's not Jill Stein's fault that Hillary Clinton lost the election. It's Hillary Clinton's fault for being just not a good candidate.
Right. And by the way, there's actually really no data to back that up, because the people saying that Jill Stein supposedly stole votes from Hillary, if that's true, then Gary Johnson stole those votes from Trump, and they canceled each other out. And they're virtually nothing.
Yeah, I look
Pat
at
Buchanan and what's his name, Ralph Nader, did the same thing years back.
Yeah, and I even look at a guy like Howard Schultz, who's debating on whether or not he wants to run for president. People are worried on the Democratic side whether or not he's going to steal votes away from the Democratic.
I was just about to bring him up.
I don't have a problem with him running. If he wants to run, then run. My biggest problem with Howard Schultz is, again, he's another status quo guy. He's a guy that's not going to change anything. He's a guy that doesn't think.
Sure would be nice to have somebody in the Oval Office who doesn't have an R or a D next to their name, though.
No, that's true. But the thing with Howard Schultz is he's not. He's a guy that went out there and. This is one thing that gets me. Why do we need to break up the insurance companies?
Right.
I mean, what are you talking about?
Right.
Why don't we have to break up? Because the insurance companies are some of the, aside from the government itself, the insurance companies are some of the biggest fucking crooks.
It's legalized mafia.
Yeah, in the United States. What are you talking about that we shouldn't break up the insurance companies?
No, it's strange.
To me, that's big business. That's big business stooge talking.
Yeah. Let's throw, without totally getting off subject with Howard Schultz, let's throw Mike Bloomberg into that discussion too, because he'll be potentially another independent running. Who Bloomberg has been a Democrat, he's been a Republican, he's been an independent. He's been all three. Personally, I don't know how he was ever a Republican. Really, I don't.
He was a popular mayor of New York City too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
People liked him. And
absolutely. Okay, Adam, I want to tell you what you had kind of said my opinion on it before, and I definitely not only agree with my own opinion, but I want to double down on my own opinion here. Do you know what? This genuinely offends me as someone who likes liberty and likes, who wants to. It's tough for me sometimes, but I want to be a constitutional patriot who believes that this system could work. And although I think we've gone away from it far too much, I want to believe that the system that the Constitution lays out is truly a great system and that it could work. It really could work. The statement that just offends me to my core is the idea that Howard Schultz can't run because he's going to steal votes from the Democratic candidate. Mitt Romney can't run because he is going to steal votes from Donald Trump. Steal is the word that, you know that I love to say that taxation is theft. You know that I love to say that other things government does is theft. I know many things that I believe insurance companies do are stealing. They're just the basic definition of stealing, of theft. I wouldn't vote for Howard Schultz or Mike Bloomberg if my life depended on it, for the record. But the idea that they are stealing votes, I'm sorry, does the Democratic Party own those votes?
No, it's their
Does
job.
the Republican Party own those votes?
It's their job to earn those votes.
Right. Nobody owns your vote. Nobody owns anyone's vote. So the idea that they would steal it is, all you people out there who claim to dislike the two-party system, that is you worshiping the two-party system. When you make a statement like, that person is going to steal a vote.
It's political laziness.
It is.
It's something that, oh, well, if he's not running, then that's not an issue that I'm going to have to address.
And quite frankly, I believe that, yeah, it's political laziness. It's acting like you have jurisdiction or ownership over X amount of votes within the country, but it's also an excuse that the two parties use. And there's even some out there that many people believe, such as George W. Bush George Bush Sr. would have defeated Bill Clinton if Ross Perot did not run, and again, steal those votes from him. Now, would George Bush have won if Ross Perot didn't run? I have no idea. Nobody knows the answer to that question. But do we know for certain that Bill Clinton wouldn't have won that election had Ross Perot not run? No! We don't know that. We don't know that at all. Not one bit do we know that. In fact, there is virtually no data to back that statement up, other than the Republicans want to come up with a whole bunch of excuses as to why they lost the election. And that's fine. That's all excuses are most of the time. Excuses in life, 90% of the time, are bullshit.
The only thing that you can look at in that sense is the problems that George H.W. Bush had during his presidency, and what the Democrats did in nominating a guy like Bill Clinton. That's the only thing you can look at. Yeah. And how that attributed to H.W.'s downfall and Bill Clinton's rise to prominence. That's it. You can't look at anything else.
American people voted for the candidate that they chose to vote for, which is what they're supposed to do, regardless. Now, I mean, people want to say, oh, but Perot was more of a Republican. I don't know, maybe he was. Yeah, sure, okay. Perot was a Texan, like George Bush. Oh, sorry. Did Perot win Texas? No, he didn't. He didn't. Some people might think he did. If you're, clueless.
If he would have won Texas, then okay, you could go ahead and make that argument.
Yep.
Then.
My argument about vote stealing and people's right to run wouldn't change. But had Ross Perot won Texas, yes, I would. We could break it down by the numbers and show how Ross Perot took the election from George Bush. I'll take it a step further. If Bill Clinton won Texas because Ross Perot had split the vote, and then George Bush, a native of Texas, the Republican stronghold and Republican candidate, had George Bush lost Texas and Ross Perot potentially split a vote and gave Texas to Bill Clinton, okay, a little bit more of a stretch, but I'll still give you that argument. Nope. George Bush won Texas. So what the hell are you talking about? Ross Perot's 0 electoral votes and 19% of the popular vote did nothing. Did nothing except give him a spot in history as like, wow, for a third-party candidate, he actually did really good.
His spot in history is one of the most successful third-party candidates ever.
Dude got close to 1/5 of the popular vote, and hey, we'll even just call it 1/5 because I believe his name was Moreau, the Libertarian candidate. Did kind of decent that time. So third-party candidates got over 1/5 of the vote that time around.
You figured that would be eclipsed in 2016, but nope.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Me and Adam are here, trying to, champion the causes of Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, but no, they crapped the bed. They did nothing. I mean, if your third-party candidacy can't get the minimum 5% to get federal funding or federally looked at when you're running against Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, then I don't know if that's a sign that the third-party candidates are junk or if it's a sign that the country is just too far gone and polarized. I tend to go with the latter.
Yeah, I'm surprised isn't positioning himself more right now is Evan McMullin. Yeah. Because he's been a staunch Trump critic. Mm-hmm. And one of his biggest problems was getting in the race way too late. Yeah. Back in 2016. I am a little surprised that he's not. I mean, maybe it's because Mitt Romney's around.
Yeah, and maybe because he just didn't gain anywhere near the traction that they acted like he was going to get.
Yeah, and his big stronghold is currently held right now by Mitt Romney. Yeah. Right. So, who knows? I'm a little surprised you're not hearing a little bit more.
And as we talked about it, we beat this horse to death during the last election and afterwards a little bit when we were proven 100% right. But evidently no third-party candidate after the year of, I don't know, well, after the 50s, after the 1950s, evidently no third-party candidate has actually read the Constitution and realized how electoral politics works. They obviously don't get it, so maybe they don't deserve our vote or deserve our respect because
they want to sit here and run a national campaign.
Right. When it's sorry, like the Constitution, by the way, to anyone listening out there, it's not like voodoo magic. Like you can Google it. Like it's right there. You can read the whole thing. You can do it in a day. It's not that long. Like you can read the Constitution like anytime you want. And do you know what's so cool about the Constitution? It's not even that hard to understand. I mean, I know constitutional lawyers, debate the ins and outs and the nuance and the minutia of it all, but the basics of the Constitution, it's not that hard to understand. Like it lays it out pretty good. Yeah. I know it's 1789 speech, and sometimes you got to reread a sentence 3-4 times, but to kind of get what they're getting at. But it's right there, man. It's right there. You can Google it.
Did you ever see that Family Guy? It was this Family Guy take on the Second Amendment. Like, you don't think we should rewrite the wording for the right to bear arms? It's like, no. What are you talking about? How could anybody confuse that? Every American has the right to put a pair of bear arms on their wall. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard. I haven't seen that, but I have heard that joke made before. Any other candidate you want to do? There's one more candidate that I want to mention. Potential candidate. No, I think we've covered all the official.
Let me see if there's any other ones that we missed. We didn't say a whole lot about Beto, but he just hasn't announced yet.
Yeah, we did mention him though. For sure.
Trying to go through. Mentioned Howard Schultz briefly there, but again, he didn't. He hasn't officially declared himself that he was going to run either. I think that's pretty much all of them.
Okay, one more huge one for me that I want to mention has not declared their candidacy, and is grown worthy to many, many people out there, but I do feel like has to be mentioned, and that is Hillary Clinton. We do not know for sure that Hillary Clinton is not running again. And if she is, we can be certain that we're not going to know for 8 or 10 months at the very least. The very least. Maybe a year or more before she throws her hat in the ring, because she's not going to get down in the mud with all these other people beforehand when she doesn't need to. The question is, and I know you don't want her to be, Adam, so don't answer from that respect, but if Hillary Clinton throws her hat in the ring, does she instantly become the front runner?
I hope not. I don't trust the Democratic Party to say yes or no when you ask that question, just because I don't know if they're going to get another fucking political hard-on over her candidacy and want to anoint her the nominee.
Or does she just have that much clout too, where people feel like they have to? I
don't think she does anymore. Like I said earlier, when you lose a general election to a guy like Donald Trump, I think you've got to certainly take a step back and look at yourself as a party and figure out what the fuck happened. Everything that was mentioned about Hillary Clinton, all the baggage that she carried, that didn't go anywhere. I mean, that will still be there. I mean, is it fair to hold her accountable for it, but overlook Donald Trump's? Yeah, it is unfair, but it doesn't matter. Hillary Clinton still lost to Donald Trump the first time around, and like I said, the Democrats would be obviously in a much better place. They know that to run anybody else.
Right. I agree with you.
Anybody else than Hillary Clinton. And they have something that they didn't have in 2016. They have a number of different candidates that they could put up against Donald Trump and will do very, very well.
I mean, they tried to coronate Hillary Clinton. They basically quelled all opposition to her. It was a bad move. But one simple fact remains, and this to me is a fact, not an opinion. People can claim it's my opinion, but to me it is an absolute fact, and that is that Hillary Clinton still wants to be president of the United States.
Oh, sure she does.
She absolutely does. And if she thinks, we talked about nothing to lose, if she thinks there is a snowball's chance in hell that she wins this thing, I think she runs.
I don't think... I mean, call me naive. I don't think that she has the power she once had in the Democratic Party.
I think that's safe to say that. Yeah, but does she still have enough? Her power's definitely been diminished.
Again, call me naive. I don't think she does. I don't think Democrats are going to be dumb enough this time around to sit here and coronate her.
I think they'd be dumb to do it.
I mean, considering too who is already running in this race. I mean, you don't have Lincoln Chafee, you don't have Martin O'Malley, you don't have Jim Webb.
No, it's not just a couple of hacks.
No,
but I mean, let's face it. Jim Webb, Martin O'Malley, and Lincoln Chafee were just hacks put in place to give the illusion of a primary.
Yes,
that is it. Nothing more. That was not a real primary.
Yep, and you also throw an independent from Delaware in there, who,
right,
we've got a problem now because he's gaining a lot of traction, and try to knock him down a peg because he's Jewish or because he's a democratic socialist or and this and that, and
again, what we saw there too is that it's just bottom line that primary was fake. You know,
It
I
was
mean,
fake.
we know that they screwed Bernie. They wanted to run Bernie to see how far can we push certain things. And then he did too good. And then they said, "Oh shit, we have to fix this."
Yep.
And they did. They fixed it, and they got their girl. But the thing is with Hillary, one other thing I want to mention. This is just kind of a strange thing because I don't think she's the right candidate for the Democrats. I don't think it would be a smart move to even let her in. And personally speaking, I hate the woman with a loathing passion, and she is the last person on planet Earth I want to be president of the United States. But that's just my opinion. But strangely, in American history, when someone has lost the popular vote and then ran again 4 years later, they have won every single time.
Last one to do that was George W. Bush.
Yeah, but Al Gore didn't run.
Al Gore didn't run, no.
So the theory wasn't tested again that time around. But every other time someone has lost the popular vote and ran again 4 years later, they have won by a decent margin. It's not a ton of times, but you got Grover Cleveland, you got Andrew Jackson. This happened to both of them. They came back and kicked ass 4 years later. Does that matter? Maybe not.
And Andrew Jackson's is more akin to Donald Trump than...
Well, maybe, but it's the... he lost... Obviously, if you lose the popular vote and win the popular vote and lose the electoral college, obviously it's a close election.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a very close election, but he lost a very close election to John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was kind of a strange political figure, much like Donald Trump. Ideologically, he's nothing like Donald Trump, but he was, and Andrew Jackson came back and smoked him. And part of what he ran on was like, hey, I won the popular vote. I almost had the votes to do it. So, I don't know. Do we have a news section?
We don't. We're
over anyway, right? Yeah. I wasn't trying to cut you off though. If there's anything else you want to jump in, I just thought Hillary would be a good way to wrap it up to kind of but I don't want to cut you off.
God, I just please God no, please God no, don't run. And I'm not saying don't run because I don't want to sound like a hypocrite earlier when I said third party should run. Who cares?
Right.
I don't want Hillary to run just because I don't fully trust the Democratic Party not to coronate her again.
And hey, you know how I feel about modern politics and how I'm probably going to end up wasting my vote or sitting home on my thumbs that day instead. There's a very good chance I will not be voting for any of the people that we just mentioned today. There's a very good chance that will happen. I couldn't bring myself to vote for Trump or Hillary last time, and it will probably be a similar situation for me this time, I'm guessing. But as a fan of politics and as a fan of history, I would like to see a good, fun, and interesting Democratic primary this time around where we legitimately don't know. If Hillary Clinton's in it, it's not a primary. It's whether she wins or loses, it instantly becomes do we elect Hillary or do we elect non-Hillary? And then it just becomes who do we put to get rid of Hillary or does Hillary, that's what it becomes.
Like I said, I don't think she has the political power this time around, but I don't want to test that.
But we know she could run. We know she could run. Hey, maybe it'd be awesome to see Hillary try to run again and her to get smoked in the primary. Maybe the Democrats would actually be smart enough to say, no, we're not interested, Hillary. Go home.
Well, we've already seen her lose a primary before.
Yeah, we have. We have. Sorry, but then last time it was her turn. But then she didn't get her turn. So, it's tough. It is tough. But hey, I hope this was helpful to anyone out there listening. We got a long road ahead of us, and there's a really, really good chance that the Democratic nominee is somebody that we didn't even mention yet.
Oh,
Very good chance.
Hey,
of
this
that.
time when the Republican primary happened, Jeb Bush was in the lead.
Right. Right.
Donald Trump was, I don't want to say an afterthought, but
No, and other guys who we thought were going to give Jeb Bush run for his money were Rick Perry.
yeah.
You know, I mean, a guy that got zero traction. Rudy Giuliani.
Who was the governor?
Chris Christie.
Who was the governor of Wisconsin?
Oh, geez, you put me on the spot here.
Forgot his name, but he was
yeah.
supposed to be the next rising star.
Right, yep, and he didn't even make it to Iowa.
Scott something?
Um,
Damn it.
it is Scott something. I was about to say Scott Peterson. That's the guy that killed his wife.
Hold on.
Yeah, just Google it real quick.
Shit.
What do we
Come
got?
on. Scott Walker.
Scott Walker. Yeah, Scott Walker. No, he was a big rising star. We couldn't even remember his name now. And, you know, I mean, and, yeah, and, you know, Rick Perry, who had done good 4 years prior, no traction whatsoever. Chris Christie was gonna be huge.
I always thought Bobby Jindal was going to make more of an impact, too.
And he still could.
He still could.
Yeah, he's still good in the future. You haven't heard the last of Bobby Jindal. I don't think.
Haven't heard anything of him since.
Right. But hey, that's that, folks. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Xcast. And then 2 weeks after that, you'll catch us for Deep Issues, where we will talk about Planet X, because we unfortunately had to bump that show back from last month. But we're back in the swing of things now, and thanks for tuning in, everybody. We really appreciate you.
It's our planet. Planet X.
Yeah, exactly. It's where we broadcast from.
Yep. See you, everybody.